the most shocking and amazing and wonderful and astonishing thing in the world has happened. And we can't even believe it. And we have to assume that it's true because otherwise it would be the meanest prank ever. Coming up, two very special guests on today's Oddcast.
We always have an odd one in the crowd.
So it's kind of odd.
Decidedly odd.
Doesn't that strike you as a little bit odd?
No, that doesn't strike me as a little bit odd.
It's the Bob and Sheri Oddcast, with stuff we wouldn't, couldn't, or shouldn't do on the regular show. Now, here's the Oddcast.
It is so fun having Tony Garcia and the legend himself, Bob Lacey, joining us for this Oddcast because we have something to celebrate that, honestly, Bob, I never even thought of this as a goal. This just seems so beyond the reach that it never occurred to me to even wish for this. And Tony, tell everybody what we're talking about.
We have been inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame for 2025.
Woohoo!
That is so great. Again, some of the people who are in the Hall of Fame, do you have the list there, Tony?
I don't have a complete list, but there's about 350 people, and it ranges back from the golden age of radio, from like Abbott and Costello to Edward R. Murrow to Charles Osgood, and then more recent like Dr. Laura and folks like that. I'll see if I can find more names.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that Cousin Brucey and Dan Ingram are probably there. Murray the K, people like that. You have to be of a certain interest in radio to know those names or a certain age. But those are the guys that I grew up listening to when I was a kid. The idea that I'm in a Hall of Fame.
You're with your heroes, yeah.
With Murray the K. My God, I met him when I was 15 years old.
So you'll appreciate this. So Dan Ingram is in there. Don Imus, my idol, is in there. Casey Kasem, Murray the K. Kaufman, Bob Kingsley, for those of you who like country. Let's see, the Lone Ranger is in there.
All right.
Which I think is Ron Lundy.
The midday guy.
Golden age of Top 40 at WABC, right? It's a pretty storied list. Gary Owens, who a lot of people would know. So it's a pretty.
That is so cool. I grew up with these guys. You know, I was a teenager. I can't believe that I'm in the same group. And I got to tell you, 350 names for how old is radio? It's about 100 years old, something
about
like
100
that.
years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a small group. There have been tens of thousands of people who have either briefly or maybe for an extended period done radio. For us to be in this group is such an honor.
I mean, it's breathtaking
really
and so unexpected. And I just learned, and this just made my shriveled Gen X heart grow 3 sizes in one day, that we're being inducted in the same class as one of the original MTV VJs, Martha Quinn.
Who went to school with Tony. Tony, tell the story. Tell the story about Martha Quinn when you were in college.
Sure. So I show up at the college radio station, and it's a Friday afternoon because, it's Friday, right? So I'm hanging out at the radio station, and this petite girl walks by, and I look at her, and she's familiar. And I'm like, I gotta, she just looks familiar. Let me look at her again. And so I go in the other room and I look through the window into the studio and I go, that's the Burger King girl. And Martha was an actress and appeared in TV commercials as a teenager. And she was in a Burger King commercial. And that's what I recognized her from. But she did an R&B show on WNYU, our college radio station, and she used the air name of Tiffany. And I got to tell you, if you closed your eyes and you didn't know, you'd think she was exactly right for an R&B themed show.
Really? Really?
Yes. Yeah. And her show aired right before ours, and ours was a new wave countdown called Wavebreaker, which we syndicated to college stations around the country, which is how I learned to be in the syndication business.
Was she kind of creeped out that you were peeking through blinds, staring at
Well,
her?
Bob. This was not like a Hitchcock movie. This was. There's a.
I mean, just the way you said it.
For
is
those
like,
of you who
then,
now think I
you
need
know,
to be on some
I
sort of a
started
curve
looking
list,
through-
can I
saw
just
her
tell you,
move and I followed
Bob,
her.
can I just tell you, Bob, I know you've been retired, man, but the radio studios, they have windows. There's no curtains. There's no blinds. I just went by. I looked, and people watch while you're doing your radio.
I'll take your
shows.
word for
I'm
it.
offended now. I'm offended.
Well, I think that you're, overly, explaining yourself. But let's just let it go. It's fine.
Let's pause right here. Okay, so we're back, and we're just so I can't even really talk about the Radio Hall of Fame. I'm so shocked. I am so shocked. I am so used to the phrase, well, it's an honor to be nominated, that I don't know what to do with a win.
My wife is going to be so happy. She really is, because she's been, we've been married almost 16 years, and she's seen us lose a lot of awards. She is going to be so happy for me. And I was just thinking a moment ago, I've been reflecting a little bit, now that I'm retired, I have a lot more time in my hands. I try not to do it too much, but the other night, maybe I had more than 2 glasses of wine. And I was thinking back on some of the little teapot radio stations I was making minimum wage on. I had to put 3 of them together to cobble together some kind of an income. And they were so small and so rinky dink, and the money was so terrible. And I think if I wasn't so scared of going broke, I don't think I could do it. It was such a rough way to start, and I'm not alone. Most people in the business start that way, unless you're Sherry Lynch and you're a spoiled little queen bitch. But anyway, starting out in a major market. But when I look back, literally, I've told the story. I'll tell it very briefly. I was working in a plastics factory, trying to save enough money to get a foothold into college. And I was driving back, and I put on this station that was a daytime station in Providence, Rhode Island. And the guy on the air was an older guy, and he sold his own commercials, and he played a lot of oldies and a lot of R&B. A guy named Chuck Stevens. And so I'm listening, and Chuck says, "Our newsman, Ernie, is leaving us. Today's his last day. He's going into the hardware business." I went, wow, guy's quitting radio. And I drove my old beat up car. I found out where that station was, down by the river in East Providence, Rhode Island. And I knocked on the door, and I was, how old was I? 19, I guess. And I said, "I understand that there's an opening." And the manager let me in. There's probably 3 employees. Let me in. He talked to me, and I got on the air the next day. The next day, I'm reading news, and I just couldn't believe it. And I think about that station, which during the winter, it had a hot pot-bellied stove to heat the building. And I broadcast sitting next to the pot-belly stove. And $1.60 an hour is what I was making on that radio station. To flash forward, and I was on 2 or 3 others that are about the same. And if you had told me that I was going to be in the same group with Murray the K and cousin Bruce Murrow, I would not have believed that.
Well, I just
Bob,
love
I
the
wanted
idea.
to be on the radio.
Huh?
I wanted to be on the radio so bad. I actually paid to be on the radio.
Really?
Did you know that? Yeah. They had a thing called, I want to say it was called like Kaleidoscope or something. But they had these studios in Midtown Manhattan, and you would go in and you would pay them. I can't even remember what the price was, maybe $25 for a 15-minute show that you would record in a little studio on a reel of tape, and they would send it to some station, that I'd never heard of. I think the station I was on was in Uvalde, Texas, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I did that for about a year.
I have never heard of a situation like that.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
impressive. You talk
They
about
train
investment.
you. Yeah, they train you. It's not a school, but they train you
Yeah.
obviously how to use the console and pot up a record and whatnot. And I did that for a while, and then I was a summer intern at the mighty 1290 WGLI on Long Island, and I was sort of the fill-in guy whenever somebody went on vacation. I did news. It was $2 an hour. I did news. The first time I got to talk after doing the newscast was to do a show called Ask Your Neighbor. And Monday was recipe day. So I walk in there and the first thing is somebody wants to know how to make like stuffed peppers. I'm 20 years old. And I'm like, okay, Mildred, let me find a recipe. Does anybody have a recipe for delicious stuffed peppers? Call us now at 570-1290. Here's Barbara Streisand. Literally, that was the deal. That was the deal.
I had to sell myself with one station that played what they used to call easy listening music back then. So I'm 19. I've got hair down to my shoulders, right? I'm basically a hippie, and I go into the manager's office, and he says, "Well, what interests you in our radio station?" And I said, I love people like Louis Prima and Henry Mancini.
Oh my God.
Man, what a genius he was. I'm just bullshitting left and right. And I'm sure the guy knew that I was. I'm sure he did. But you did anything to try to get through that door. One station, WPEP, the voice and choice of Greater Taunton, Massachusetts. On Saturday morning, I would show up and I'd play music for a couple of hours. And then I was given instructions. And the instructions were for 1 hour, a Lions Club was going to take over the air, which seemed odd to me. And I said, "Now, ladies and gentlemen, we turn it over to the Taunton Lions Club." And a guy sat down at the piano and went, dun, 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 dun. And for the next hour, they talked about people in Taunton who had died on a Saturday morning. And I'm sitting there going, okay.
This is lively.
Yeah. Oh, it was always live. Yeah. It was always live.
It's such the people that I've met over the course of my career in radio have all of these kinds of stories to tell. And it's just, it's insane and it's laugh out loud funny. But it's also, it shows you like that even though radio is about 100 years old now, it's not very old at all. That we can still go back to pot-bellied stoves and recipes and dear God paying to be on the station. I mean, it's wild how quickly things changed, how quickly the technology changed, how quickly the industry changed. But here's what I love, Bob. I love that all those legendary legacy radio talents that you listened to as a kid on a train, probably on a little tiny radio when you were supposed to be asleep, that you're going to get to share this honor with them.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And, I have been on radio around radio a long, long time. In fact, the other day I was reflecting the last time I had cocktails with Marconi. And I said, "Mark, thank you so much for inventing this, because as my friend Tony Garcia said, it's an industry for C students with ADD." And I can't thank you enough.
So the whole show, Tone, will all go to Chicago for this momentous evening?
Yeah.
Something tells me.
Hey, I'm sorry I'm putting you out, Tony. Gee, I'm really sorry that this is screwing up your budget. Maybe I'll just stay back.
I'm watching your breakfast order, Buster. No, seriously. This is the thing, guys. This is for I think for all of us, probably the most significant honor of our careers. So
no question.
We're going. My only disappointment is that we're going to be staying at the Swiss Hotel in Chicago, not the Marriott, because I will not be able to get points.
I knew that was
coming. Tony, the event is there. We could still stay at the Marriott.
Don't you think I'm not looking? Do not think I'm not looking.
You wouldn't be Tony Garcia if you
I
did.
will not be denied my Marriott points. I mean, look, we have to have our priorities.
Based on the sound of your voice, this event is going to cost like someone here is going to need to sell a kidney on the internet, because I know you and I can hear the pain in your voice without knowing yet what this is going to cost.
I've got this figured out. Limited edition Bob and Sheri Radio Hall of Fame 2025 shirts will be available at bobandsheri.com. Just go to bobandsheri.com and click on the shop tab.
You know what? That's better than setting up a GoFundMe, because at least you're getting something for your donation.
Yeah, you'll get a shirt. Yeah.
Or you could do both. You could do both, Tony.
We're not going to do a GoFundMe. I don't think it's within the spirit of the Hall of Fame to have a GoFundMe campaign. Now, the first time
you noticed he said, "I don't think."
I know.
Yeah, we haven't ruled it out.
I'm not ruling anything out. But we do, listen, we deserve a party for ourselves, and we deserve some fun. And we're going to do
about
this.
Bob and Sheri Bitcoin? I have no idea how Bitcoin works. Seemingly, there are some people that are making an assload of money with it. Put Sheri's face on a Bitcoin thing. People would buy it.
They like that.
Max, I know what Max is thinking, because I know Max so well and I spend so much time with Max. Max is like, oh, this is amazing, the Hall of Fame. Gosh, I sure wish my folks were here to see this moment. Then again, the world seems to be ending, and isn't that just on brand for the show?
It's the most Bob and Sheri thing ever.
Isn't it? It absolutely.
We finally get nominated, and then we get vaporized before we have a chance to go and give a speech and collect.
Well, how do you think I feel? I finally stopped working, and they say, all right, give him the award now. God almighty. Never shut up.
Hey, Bob, they could have given it to you posthumously. So be happy for this.
Yeah.
Be happy for this.
Yeah. Aren't you glad you're at least alive to hear this news?
For the last few seconds, not so much, but yeah.
Lamar's over there like, good for you, brother. It took me a little less time to get there, but good for you. We're all
it's been a great year and a half for me so far.
Yeah, so far.
Well, how are you enjoying it, Lamar? How are you enjoying it?
Oh my God, it's a damn job and a half, but I'm having the time of my life. So it's confusing. Yeah. It is confusing.
Yeah. Lamar, just be patient. It's going to get easier.
As long as you're having fun with it.
Yeah, I'm having fun with it. Yeah, I'm having fun with it. I'm having fun with it. Yeah.
Somebody once said it's a hard way to make an easy living. And I think that's pretty much
exactly
Sheri.
Right. That's exactly
Sheri was pretty transparent, but she never mentioned that it was 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. She never mentioned that part. She said it's going to be hard. She didn't say 7 days a week, 16 hours a day.
Well, when I saw that you didn't believe me about it being a hard job, I knew there was no point telling you what the hours were.
Yeah, you couldn't have talked me out of it to save your life. You really could not have. That's true.
Here's a corn cob that's going to have to learn it for himself.
So here's my evil plan. Would you like to hear it?
I would love to hear it.
I'm going to mistakenly email a notification about this honor to all the affiliates that have canceled us in the last year.
Oh God!
And I'm going to send it to them.
Yes.
As I'm going to send it to them as if they're still affiliates, so that if they reach back out to me and say, "Hey, Tony," I'll say, "Oh my gosh, I totally forgot.
How
must
awkward.
be an old list. How awkward for me. I'm so sorry. Please accept my deepest apologies."
I love that. I love that.
We deserve to. You're right. We deserve to celebrate this. However, ludicrously expensive it is. And I can tell by your voice that ludicrous is the right word to use for this. We deserve to celebrate this, and we would not be here without the people who tune in to the radio show, to this podcast, to Talking Lamar, to True Weird Stuff. We owe those people everything we have. Our little Bob and Sheri family, we owe them everything, because we've had a manager come and go, a station come and go, a corporate group come and go. But you know who's always been there? Our family of listeners. Who we know their names and their faces, and we see them on Happy Hour. They are the people who put us here.
Yeah, I got a real sense of that reading the letters, and there were hundreds that Sheri boxed up for me, to say nothing of the emails. And I was brought to tears reading some of them. Some of them were just, "Hey, loved listening to you," and went back so many years and so on. But there were others that had very poignant moments where maybe they lost someone, they were fired or whatever, and our foolishness gave them something to smile at and something to get back on the track, to focus on, that life can get better even though you've gone through something difficult. Reading those, especially, nobody writes letters anymore, but I got about 400, and
wow.
I can only read like 5 or 10 at a time, because it's just very emotional.
So emotional. Yeah. Wow. It's very emotional.
That is so great.
Well, we'll wrap up this episode, and as we learn more, and as we send the defibrillator paddles to Tony, because he's looking at prices now, we'll share more. But we just wanted to have. We talked about this on our show on Monday, June 30th, when we found out about the Radio Hall of Fame. But we wanted to talk a little more in detail and thank you who are listening to the podcast right now for making this happen. This is the kind of thing that, like, for Bob and Tony especially, listening to radio late at night and daydreaming about someday, being in the radio business, this is a dream so big that you didn't even dare to dream it, to have this come true. Right?
True.
So I'm really, really thrilled for you guys. And I'm so proud of our team, every single person that works with the show. Some of them, you know their names, and some you don't. And I'm really grateful for some of the leadership that we had early in our career. I want to shout some of those people out too. Guys like Rick Jackson, who might not have known what the hell to do with us, but he got out of the way and let us do our thing and supported us and protected us. And Rick is the person who reached out to Tony and said, "I got this show and I don't want them to ever leave, but they're going to leave if we don't find a way to keep them, and let's keep them by syndicating the show." I mean, there are so many people without whose input and support and fierce protectiveness, none of this would be happening. I mean, we were allowed to incubate a show that was unlike anything that anybody in the business had heard before. We were allowed to do that and grow it and build it in our own time, in our own way. And we owe a lot of people who aren't even in radio anymore. We owe a lot of people a debt of gratitude. And I'm particularly excited, Bob, because one of the people that we will be inducted with is one of my favorite people in our business. His name is Mike McVeigh. He's a consultant, and but so much more. He is a force of nature and creativity in the radio business. And to go in the same class as Mike and Martha Quinn and all of these other incredible talents is so huge. And especially for me, because I didn't have to sit by a pot-bellied stove in the beginning of my career, and I didn't have to pay anyone to let me be on the air. But sons of bitches, I had to fix the plumbing in the lobby bathroom every day.
That is so
Sheri, as soon as the show's over, I'm going to get together with Max, and we're going to set up a bingo card. And the bingo card will have the names of all the previous program directors we've worked with, who will now take credit for your career.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm used to that. I'm thinking of one right off the top. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're thinking about the same person. It's the person who said you're the greatest talent he's ever coached.
Well, and he taught me how to have a conversation, because prior to this, I was like one of those children that had been living in the woods and just and pointing at things.
Yeah.
So
just one word answers. Yeah.
Well, you guys, I'm really proud to go into the Radio Hall of Fame with all of you. But when the Plumber Hall of Fame inducts me, bitches, you're staying home, because I was the one up to my elbows in the toilet.
No, you deserve it completely.
Yeah.
Bob, go tell Mary the great news. Have an awesome day. Thank you all for listening to the show and for supporting it. Our website is BOBANDSHERI.com. As we always say, you're the reason we make it. Because if you're not out there listening, we're in a day room somewhere making crafts, and Max is an orderly pretending to be a producer. And that is a very unsettling thought.